So we alive. Hey, we popped on tonight with no minute, nothing like that, because we got a few moments before Xavier's curfew, and I will not be here tomorrow because I have to go out of town for work, and I leave right at the time of Bible study. So for those of you that can come on and catch up, I just put it up so some people might just not see it, Zay, uh, because there's a title for tonight, and you know that's what's there. Um, yeah, that's the real title. Because tonight I want to talk about it. So this is what happened. There was some preachers. I don't know where they was from. I can't say in Atlanta because truthfully I don't know where these preachers are from. And they decided to talk about because Jada, I'm say her name, so because that's what we do on this broadcast. Jada has not been seen in a good light. And she didn't even do nothing. Like she just sat there, was hurt the other night. And then somebody decided to put up the other day the text that's there. And we're gonna read the text. We're gonna give you some context behind the text because the sad part is, this is the first Isaiah with some poetry for all my Bible scholars out there, and we're gonna read it. And so, but I gotta run and do something right quick, and then Zay, because I dated Baldhead Scalloway, because that's how the people who wrote it started to say it. They said this is why the slap happened because of the infidelities and wrongs of this woman. Personally, I'm definitely gonna talk from a woman's ethic tonight. For all my people who want like that's not woman. Now, I'm talking from the ethic part because we really don't know what's going on with their family, what they doing. All we know is what they talk about at a red table. But truth be told, let's get it right. I am not one to take scripture and try to mishandle it. So we're gonna talk about it tonight. We're gonna look at it. For people who laughed at the meme, whatever went out was terrible. Um, but using scripture to justify somebody's hurt and pain and disability and difference is crazy. So Zay, you say what you must. I promise y'all it's gonna take me 2 minutes to go do what I need to do, and I'll be right back.
Welcome. Good afternoon. Actually, it is now evening. It is well into the evening. Um, yeah, I think we're going to have some interesting conversation around Jada and Will. And these preachers, I didn't see it. Margaret was talking to me about it. I did not see it, but having some interesting conversation around one, how do we use scripture to justify and or to bother others in their own problems? Because first of all, let's deal with the fact that there is no infidelity if they have agreed. Because the Bible says, I mean, y'all's Bible says that the marriage bed is undefiled. So if your Bible says that the marriage bed is undefiled, that means that if a couple made, then that bed is um to take your, let me say that one more time, to take your ethics and to impose them upon somebody else, it is therefore then in of itself unethical. And so we cannot take our own ethics and try to overlay it and justify the mistreatment of somebody who doesn't even identify and use the same level of ethics that we use. Jada and Will and their family do not identify as Christian. So to try to use a Christian ethic to justify their mistreatment and to justify what Chris Rock was doing to her is unethical, at the very least. But also, let's put also in context, further put in context, that this wasn't the first time that Chris Rock had come for, had mistreated, had spoken out against in a negative tone, in a negative way, Jada Pinkett Smith. Um, and so when you look at the fact that Will initially laughed, and so I'm just putting it in a context of what actually happened. Margaret's going to deal with this text, and we'll go back and forth. But if you look at it and you watched it, Will initially laughed because Will knew the place and the time that he was in. But Will, being a man who has a wife that he has a relationship with, that he and she are strong in and respect, again, their ethics. When he saw that she was hurting, he did what any man that I know and that I look up to would have done. He slapped the out of somebody who was attacking his wife. I said this before and I'll say it again, and I believe my father would back me up. If that had been Marla, why Moss Coombs sitting there, and somebody had been doing that to her, and my daddy looked over at them and saw that she was hurt, a slap would have been the least of his worries. And so I think when you begin to try to, again, impose your own ethics, especially when your own ethics are faulty, and many of the men, I don't even know who they are, but I can pretty much assume, based upon what I've heard and seen, that many of the men who are probably talking about her being infidel, um, committing infidelity, are themselves infidels, are themselves not walking in a particular type of ethic. Because let someone come in their bedroom, the first thing they will say is, it's none of your business. So why are we trying to manage the bedroom? And I have some people I look up to who I totally just, because they're playing respectability politics. And there is a time for respectability politics. But some people who are playing it right now, I want to tell them, baby, your slip is showing. Because we remember just a few years ago when you were in similar situations, or that somebody had walked in your classroom or your church or your office and attacked you, you would have read them and gone off and threatened and dared them to say anything back to you. So I find it really interesting, the level of respectability politics that we're playing with white folk who don't care for us no way. And so I'm all for what Will did, and you can get in the bin box or not. It probably would behoove you not to. I'm all for what Will did because, like I said, had that been my mother, had that been my mother, and me and my dad was there, a slap would have been the least of his worries. Had that been my sister, oh, it wouldn't have even been a question. Had that been my niece, it wouldn't even have been a question, especially knowing the history. And so when we get to the text, Margaret, to get into the text, I'm purposely staying away from the text. And I'm gonna let Margaret do what she does with the text. But I want us to put this in a socio-political historical context. Black men have always, historically until recently, we stood up for our Black women. Where we lost it and we stopped standing up for our Black women and found it okay. And see, and I'm gonna say this, and if people can get mad, I don't care. Today's one of them days I just don't care. Many of the folk who are complaining about what Will did don't have a good relationship with their own husbands or their own daddies. Because if you got a real Black man that's a daddy or a husband, you would have been used to that. That would have been what you expected. And that is actually what you're looking for in a man. I don't know a woman who is heterosexual who wants a man, who wants somebody who's going to let somebody sit in their face and talk about them and hee ha ha and laugh with them. You wouldn't. And furthermore, if my daddy did decide not to do anything, he couldn't have walked back in that house with Marla and thought it was going to be okay. Oh man, it would have been some talking, some plates moving, some furniture shifting, because you let this man do this to me and you sat there and you didn't say nothing. Now, my dad would not do it. It wouldn't even be an option for my daddy. But I'm just saying, in some far off land, that it probably wasn't. My mother wouldn't even accept it. And so I'm questioning some of these women who are questioning Will for what he did. What type of men are you laying up with?
Oh, Zay. Now we got to come back next week. Now, if I didn't have to catch a plane, this would have been tomorrow. But I got to catch a flight to the other side of America, United States, rather.
I'm sorry. I'm really questioning the type of men that these women are with, that you're finding it offensive that he stood up for the woman he sleeps with and has been with longer than he has been with any other woman other than his mother. And then when you understand the back history of Willard Smith that we know as Will Smith, that his one of his biggest issues is that he never could defend his mama, and now and yes, he laughed. But if you watch the clip, he laughs initially because I really do believe he understands the space in which he's in. But when he looks over at this woman who is there innocently supporting him because this is his night, and he sees her hurting, something runs through him like any man should. If you love a woman, friend, girlfriend, best friend, sister, mother, and you see them hurting, something happens as a real man. And I don't use that term to define what a man should be and should not be. I'm just saying, as a man who loves and understands who women are to them, when you understand that, you will not allow another man to harm them. That's just my 2 cents. Margaret can deal with the text. And so I'm trying to figure out why we find it okay for Chris Rock to say, and it's just jokes. That is the problem. That is the problem. It has been just jokes for too long, and we have allowed. And I mean, and y'all don't believe me, go back and look at some of the stuff Chris Rock has been saying with other people too. Chris Rock has been pandering to white folk for a while now, and it still is not successful for him. I mean, Chris Rock has been pandering to white folk for a while now. And furthermore, he did this movie about hair, so he should understand the duality of talking about a woman's hair in a particular type of way, but then publicly talking about her hair and coming at her. And then that second part, Jada's sick, and she's dealing with an autoimmune disease that is causing her to lose her hair, alopecia. But it is a further, if you listen to her talk before, she has another issue that is coinciding with the alopecia. So yeah, I think that Will was 100% correct in what Will did. Did I think that was probably the right space to do it? Probably not. But do I think that he may have overreacted? Possibly. But do I think what he did was somewhat justified in that he was defending his wife and that he did not possibly think it all the way through once he saw her in pain? Yes. Do I think we should write him off and cancel him? No. Should I think we should hold him accountable and say, brother, that's somebody you probably should talk to? Yes. About your own stuff and your dealing with and your issues around your mother and your father? Yes. Do I think that we also should hold Chris Rock? Heck yes. Accountable? Heck yes. Do I think that Chris Rock needs to realize he can't go around, even under the guise of comedy, saying whatever he wants to say? Heck yes.
Well, y'all want to know why I did this tonight? I looked at Zay today and I said, hey, I got to leave. We were trying to come up with a text because we really been talking about time. Things are just going to happen. And then this happened. And my cousin, my sister cousin, shout out to Kia, sent out this text, and it was a quote from a preacher who decided to use this text. And then we saw a tweet. I don't know if it was really Chris or not, Chris Rock, but we saw the apology that somebody put out in Chris Rock's name. And so for me, I don't like people mishandling scripture because they ain't got nothing to do with you if you're going to mishandle it. Now, you just can't pick a text and want to roll with it because everybody don't think like you. They said it. Yeah, we'll have to come back another night and talk about that because tonight I know we got to do what we got to do. Shout out to everybody watching, all the people up, because read the text. Know some of y'all on here because what kind of title is that? Yeah, this is the title. This is a first Isaiah 3:16 through 26, and I want to be clear that this is some poetic situation, and this is from the writer talking about how sovereign things are being taken away. Let's be clear. I don't believe I serve a God that's gonna make you ill. Hear what I'm saying? It's gonna make you ill for coming out with your honesty. Now, however Jada wanted to tell it one to another, she did. And it ain't none of my business how she wanted to tell it, because clearly her family discussed that. But I don't serve a God that's gonna come back and plague your house and plague you. And so let's stop mishandling scripture. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna keep it real. Zay, everything Zay said is what Zay said. Like, and again, I don't know, and I'm not, and I don't want to put it in this space of black, white, and what was going on. But let's just be clear: the Oscars, the Academy, the Actors Guild, it still ain't for us.
No.
I don't care how many Netflix movies we get to come out and produce. I don't care what legacy Chad left us with, Panthers and James Brown and Jackie Robinson. I understand the honors and all of that, but we still have to figure out how to stay and maintain our own community. So I don't condone anything that happened, either side. I'll just be real, because somebody got hurt that night, and it wasn't just Chris Rock's face and Will's pride. I mean, you had a whole woman sitting there who all you make a joke, and then supposedly, the joke wasn't written by Chris Rock, but you had an option to read it or not. And in our communities, we have an option to act or not. And so we're not. So I'm going to read this little piece of poetry, since this is what the black preachers, mind you, black preachers. That's why I got mad. It wasn't white preachers, it was black preachers. They want to put this up. And they in another sect, a community of Judaism, I think, when I read it. Whatever it may be, it's in an Abrahamic situation. But let's go. So, verse 16. The Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with outstretched necks, glancing wantonly with their eyes, mincing along as they go, tinkling with their feet, the Lord will afflict with scabs the heads of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will lay bare their secret parts. Let's be clear, since you want to use this text, ain't no scab there. The woman has a medical condition that has been proven, and there's no scab. Just want to be clearing it up for the people who want to use this scripture to say this is why everything happened, because I still can't figure out who said go here and pick this. And then the other thing is, the Lord will lay bare their secret parts. If we just want to use the words tonight, I'm not even sitting here trying to go get a commentary and do exegetical work. They put their own stuff out. They put their own stuff out though, right, Zay? Okay.
They put their own stuff out at the red table.
Okay, they put their own stuff out. In that day, the Lord will take away the finer of the anklets and the headbands and the crescents. 19, the pendants and the bracelets and the scarves. 20, the headdresses, the amulets, the sashes, the perfume boxes, the amulets, the signet rings, nose rings, the fastal robes and the mantles, the cloaks and the handbags. Let's just go right here. These mantles and cloaks, because y'all like to throw those around too when you want to dog somebody out. Because the mantles and the cloaks, I'm going to get Zay to help me come back with that. Because God is going to strip you all of that stuff if this is how we live. And quit using the text wrong, black people. 23, the garments of gauze, the linen garments, the turbans, and the veils. Keep on going. Oh, Lord. 24a, instead of perfume, there will be a stench. And instead of a sash, a rope. Now, let's sit with that. I'm going to read it again. Because if you want to use the text, keep going. Because that's what we're sitting at in this dual pandemic. Instead of the perfume, there will be a stench. And instead of a sash, a rope. Y'all sit with how y'all want to sit with that. 24b. And instead of a well-set hair, instead of y'all going to a beauty shop, I got to get my stuff twisted up. Baldness. And instead of a rich robe, a binding of sackcloth. Instead of beauty, shame. There's so much here, and this is why I wanted to keep going with this, because Zay, you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about we'll recognizing where he is. I'm gonna take it from mental health context when I come back, and then defending what he knew in community to defend. I don't know where we got this notion of we don't defend like that. Last time I checked, we just got out of that, because black men been defending black women. Gay or straight, let's just be clear, because they said heterosexual. Gay or straight, black men been defending black women if they are men and gay or straight. My
I
brothers
said the heterosexual women.
yeah, but my brothers open the door for me all the time. My brothers make sure that I lock it up. If we at my office and my brothers are here, guess what? They make sure that I close it up, lock it up, and they don't pull out before I do because they have this nurturing space called protection. All right, and so 25 and 26. Your man shall fall by the sword, and your warriors in battle, and her gates shall lament and mourn. We're talking about Jerusalem here, ravaged, and she shall sit upon the ground. So that is the text. And I want people to read the whole text because if we're gonna talk about it tonight, let's get to it. First of all, that text ain't got nothing. That text ain't got nothing to do with Jada Pinkett
Because
Smith.
she ain't Christian and she ain't
ain't got,
Jewish.
she ain't got nothing to do with her. When I tell you, she probably didn't see whatever the pastors wanted to put out and slap her with. Black pastors, black men of faith, please understand that when you try to slam and calm, please remember that your mama. Call Will Smith mama bald head too. We gonna call her bald head scallywag because that's how the title of it started. And she said she ain't never seen her son get violent. This is exactly what Zay said. She ain't never seen her son get violent. She's not seen. She's seen pictures of the slaps, but she was watching the awards and watched her son walk up like this, open the palm, and with from his neck slap a man, and did not try to get on to her son. She just said, I mean, it could have been another way. That was the end of her quote. Go to CNN.com, go read a quote. Could have been another way. On the other hand, let's see how this text is coming into play. Because what happened, I saw people worried about Chris Rock today. I seen people still worried about Will. Where's Jada? I even preached today, and I purposely didn't preach about Jada. I preached about all three of them. But tonight I knew, why do we think that it's okay to judge women and judge a household that has agreed to whatever they agreeing to publicly? Like we ain't got nothing going on. Like we ain't wrong. Because I want to go down to verse 24. Zay. That's where I sit when I kept reading this today. I said, okay. Because instead of perfume, there will be a stench. And instead of a sash, a rope. I'm telling y'all, I'm not doing good exegetical work on this. And I'm not on purpose, not doing good exegetical work on this. On purpose. Why? Because we sitting in places of stench and we finding ropes. I don't know what happened, but he coming back. We sitting in places that stench. Like everything that we thought smelled good for the last 2 years, it didn't take but time for us to see what was finna go down. And then we turning back inward. So turning back inward. And I see I'm gonna read some of the chat. What's up, you guys? Because I'm not condoning or getting on to anybody. Everybody in that situation was grown and all of them older than me. On the other hand, it could have been another way, in my opinion. But let's just talk about how community could have managed this better and how we can manage it better. I don't appreciate all the people who could just keep their mouth shut and manage this in the back room in community. But we getting up making judgment calls, as they said. And I'm talking about big superstars making judgment calls on two brothers that I don't even know if y'all in relationship with them. Because here's the stench. It's coming. That judgment stench. That discord among the brethren stench. That people want to say stuff is abomination. That's one too. The stench in this poetic work of the writer, from the perfume and the glitter and the gold. Because what I saw is Will Smith disconnected from the room. This man has watched his name and his family's name go, 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 with community making memes. This man crying over his life, his maleness, in the words of Xavier Coombs. Not his man, his maleness. My wife, all this stuff is hitting me. My kids is hitting me. Now sickness is hitting me. This man even got up and did his own YouTube situation about his own health. And so y'all saw how well he looked, right? Because he was sick. Like he's been getting hit and slammed and hit and slammed. And this is what we got. And then coming back, his wife be getting hit and slammed, hit and slammed, hit and slammed. And this is what we got. Because this is what we've been doing, community. That stench just started coming up. And then the second part, we got ropes. In my mind, Zay, when I read this, I see where we are tying each other up. Instead of sashing you and saying, bro, I see you. I got you. I'm gonna love you through it. I'm just gonna hang you with it. That's how I'm sitting with it because it's hurting. So I'm say, you know what you got. I'm gonna read and I'm gonna honor the people who are chatting tonight. Y'all keep
I think
chatting.
we, I think we have to also honor the fact that there was some community there that stood up for him.
No,
Um,
there was community that stood up for him, and
I know. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying we got. I want to honor them. I want to honor Brother Denzel Washington. I want to honor um, Madea, Tyler Perry. Um, I want to honor them, and I also want to be clear on what I was saying. When I say heterosexual woman, I wasn't talking about or disparaging any other group of people. I was saying that every heterosexual woman I know wants a man who's going to defend them and stand up for them. That's what I was saying. But yes, we can take that and apply it to, and then I also took that and applied that to beyond just a sexual or erotic type of relationship, but in all type of relationship, women expect men, in my experience,
mm-hmm.
the sisters that I know, yourself included, expect or has an expectation that if something's going down and my brother, my husband, my friend is there, they're going to stand up for me. And so I think Jada did not necessarily push Will, but Jada is also from a space where, if you understand her history, she has an expectation
Yeah,
of
she has an
that very
expectation,
same thing.
and that's what I want to say. First of all, you guys read the whole text, get in context, understand where these brothers and this sister from. All of them worked their way up to the academy. Can we be
Mm-hmm.
clear? They all worked their way up to the academy. So I still got this piece of me that's probably wounded, that's hurt. Um, I did not see, and now I'll slow down. I did not see Will. I saw Will just laughing because I'm in a room. I don't know where Will's emotions were, and I want to thank OC. What's up, Onay? And so I want to thank him for saying what he said. No, I don't condone violence. Period. Like, no, again, that's why I keep saying it could have been another way. On the other hand, I don't know what Will's mind was. So I know it could have been another way for me, but I don't know how grounded Will was. I don't know what Will was really thinking because what I saw was a man just laughing because he knew Chris Rock was a comedian. He was gazed away. What was he thinking? You stepping into a lion's den of people who have talked about you for the last 2 years. They even talked about the role that you won this Oscar for. Like, how could you play this man that when you find out whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, people chatter. That's where we are. So I don't know. But when you see the person that you love that stood by you no matter what, thick and thin, maybe in the moment, as they said, this is a moment where he finally had a strength about him that I got to go up and defend, and that was what he knew to do based upon the history of what he knows. Let's understand that we love watching the Prince of Bel-Air. Oh, when I hadn't seen the new ones, they keep telling me to watch it. Now I'm gonna have to go watch it. Look at. But have y'all heard the lyrics? Because he talk about himself. I once got in a fight and my mom's got scared. Like, I once got in a fight and my obviously Will know how to fight. He wrote that lyric from his heart. I once got in a fight and my mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in bed." Like I got you as far away from the fight as I could. That don't mean the fight came out of the man. So, in the judgment, I don't know what this meant. All I know is something hit him to open the palm. Because if he had hit him with the force that I saw in that neck clinically, I don't know if Chris would have had some teeth. He opened. Now I'm not condoning it. What I'm saying is let's care about our health and our emotional health. We don't know if Will even has a therapist or anything. Like what I read today, Will needs some help. I even heard somebody compare him to Kanye West. That's a whole nother Bible study. I was like, whoa. But I put Bald Head Scallywag because it's a song. I'm Southern, Zay Southern. It's a song from the South, right? And they talking about women who are users, who not doing what they need to do to just be women. And I'm not saying that women have standard in that they got to do something the way somebody say it. What I'm saying is they just stepping out and not being themselves. Not that's what they just not. And so here you are doing what you're doing, and they talking about them in the song. It's a rap song. This poetic word here is talking about the totality of a nation. in their behavior and how those who are acting in that nation is affecting the nation itself. And so now bring it into context if we're going to use this, because the stench and the rope, if we as a nation of people are going to talk about it, then how are we going to come up with solutions for it, healing for it, and stand in a space for it? So that, because this, when I tell y'all it's more wheels out there than you will ever know, and I see them weekly where they don't have space and somebody is literally picking at them, tagging them, saying stuff to them, going on and on and on and on and on. And I mean, and I'm gonna read that comment, but I even put this in, and it's not just black men on black men. We telling men you're not worthy enough, you're not good enough, you're not. And then we come back and say the same thing to women. You don't add up to the standard. What is the standard that we are measuring? I think Zay said it really clear. There is a Eurocentric standard that was expected for that room. And he was not in the mind frame of the Eurocentric standard. And
not at that moment.
Not at that moment.
He shifted. He shifted when he saw the woman that he loves and that he cares for hurting. But I also want to put in conversation Proverbs 18:6. Because I think that, because me and Margaret, if y'all can't tell, we're on two diverging places in this, although we agree on one thing, that we cannot misjudge and mishandle this text, and Will and Jada. But we are on two different planes when it comes to it. Me and her stepfather was talking last night, and Margaret was laughing because me and her stepfather were like stepping toe. We were right there together. That was a personal conversation, so I'm not going to repeat it. But me and him were right there with each other about how we would have handled and how we would have responded to this. But I want to bring Proverbs 18:6 into the conversation. And I don't know if Margaret has it up, but I will read it. And it says, oh man, I just lost it. And I'm trying to.
I got it for you.
Okay. Margaret got it for me. Okay, good. And hopefully she'll bring it up real quick so I can read it.
You said Proverbs 18:6, right?
Yes.
That's it.
That's it. A fool's lips bring strife, and a fool's mouth invites a flogging. Well, if you read it in the different versions, it says, a fool's mouth invites a beating.
That's flogging.
That's flogging. I just want to put it in terms. And so when you say things, my daddy used to tell me all the time, and I laugh and I tell folk this all the time, is that my dad used to always tell me, your mouth gonna get you in a lot of trouble. Well, Proverbs 18:6 tells us this. And Sunday night, Chris's mouth got him in trouble for something he did not even create. Y'all, I'll let y'all play with that around. But some of you are allowing others to cause you to do and say some things that will get you in a place that will cause your mouth to create issues and will put you in situations, because this could have all been avoided had he not opened his mouth to tell that bad joke. And so I know some of y'all, and I'm telling you, please, Margaret is much more inviting than I am. At this season in my life, I am not that inviting. Please don't try to come have a conversation with me, because I believe what I believe and I said what I said.
Well, tonight, Zay, you got a whole team. Like they're not nobody. I don't think tonight, and I think the
and I'm not saying it, I can't see the comments. I'm just saying
okay. I
can't see the comments.
Yeah, I think the people that we touch, that they're intelligent. Like, so let's have.
No, and I'm not even talking about intelligence. I just know where I'm at right now, because I've been having this conversation with a lot of different people, and some people have been trying to inbox me and come at me about, well, why are you? It was just a joke, and I have been the brunt of some jokes.
Oh yeah.
And I understand that just a joke, old folk used to say that every joke has a tinge or an air of truthfulness. See, when people are joking, they telling you what they really think about you.
Mm.
And
Oh,
so there is some underlying um and some and some there when you look at the joke about G.I. Jane. There's some layers we got to pull back that we really want to have some discussion
you
because
got people saying there was some there. You got people saying like, what was it about? Why you? Because I want you to sit on that. Was it about the alopecia? Were you referring to the sexuality that they've announced at the table that
uh-huh.
they've announced at their own table? Please understand, they have announced this at the table about their marriage and it's open. They've announced this to people. We're not talking about this family because I mean, Google it. You can find it in reputable sources. Or was it about her illness, period? Was it really trying to verbally beat down Will? I mean, what was this really about? Because now people speculating and putting it out. And again, it's not just regular people looking like you and I. I mean, you got superstars out here putting it out instead of wrapping themselves around this family and love.
And also let's put in context that this was the first time in the history of the Academy that it was directed, written, produced, and controlled by Black people.
Black.
Everybody who was a writer, everybody who was a director, everybody who was a producer that night were all HBCU grads and were led by one by the name of Will Packer.
Mm.
So the joke that was written I'm sorry, my Atlanta's coming out, wasn't written by someone else. It was written by somebody who was a part of this community who understands that Black women and their hair has a special place for them because we understand that the hair for us is a crown. And for a man who produced a movie called Black Hair or Bad Hair, Good Hair, whatever the name of that movie was, he should have understood that I can't make this joke. And the person who wrote it, who was also a Black man, should have understood I can't write this joke. And Chris should have understood I cannot read this joke or deliver this joke. And so again, Proverbs 6:18-6, because you opened your mouth and you said something that somebody else presented for you, you invited the quarrel and the beating.
So let's sit right there. I'm glad you brought this up because I'm gonna say this discord, and that's why I'm talking about the stench and the rope. Because we pull out texts and we read them and we say them, but go deeper into the text. There is a stench and there is a rope, and the community right now is hanging on that with that stench in the air. There's a lot that comes with a rope and some stench. Like let's just be clear about Black history and how people have taken the Eurocentric perspective, thought that it was funny on us when you bringing pain to us. Zay just said something so powerful. A woman in her hair, and I don't know, I'm not white, so white people might think this too, but for Black women, my hair, that's my hair. Like I was at work the other day. I was on a call. If y'all know, I do crisis, and I'm out, and the woman, she didn't mean any harm. When I say I know she didn't, and I had to be mindful where I was. I was in a situation where it was high tension, high, emotional wellness, not being stable. And she came and touched my hair and she said, "Oh, it looks like ropes." I had to catch my mouth because that's my crown. Don't touch me. Like, don't do that. Even women who are dealing with medical conditions around their hair are women. I mean, let's be mindful of those who lose their hair because of cancer treatments, who lose their hair because of other autoimmunes. You got lupus. I know they have hair issues. People who just cannot grow. You know what I'm saying? That we have to embrace our head as our crown. So why would you, as a Black male, and in the black staff that was accompanying the Black male that produced this and the Black man who wanted to tell the jokes, even come forth to make a joke about somebody's crown? Because that's all we got when it come down to a crown against Eurocentric perspective. That's my crown. So why would we sit with that, Zay? Because this right, because you're asking for it when you mess with me in particular areas. And I'm not condoning violence. You asking for a verbal, you asking for a roll of the eye, you're asking for whatever gesture I can give you, because I literally have to bring my body back into sync because you have disrupted my nervous system. I'm up, like I'm hitting it. Like I'm finna go to whatever dorsal vagal area I'm about to go. Some of us shut down, some of us pop off. I mean, it's about to go. So Zay, like, what you asking for it if you starting it? You're bringing discord.
So I want to put this again in a different. I want to switch and move our context and view. Let's put this in view of the fact that we have the first Black woman also being being interviewed, being
Yes.
grilled,
Yes.
being trying to be approved, Senate hearings, which is in and of itself a racist practice that did not start until the early 1900s because
Mm.
a Jewish man was nominated for the Supreme Court justice, and so now we have to grill them and see what they're about before we allow them to be on Supreme Court justice. But the first 100 and some years of the Supreme Court, no man was ever grilled or had to go through nomination hearings and any of that things because they were all white men. But once we got the first Jewish man, we had to shift it. And now that we've gotten beyond just having Jewish and white men or European white men, because the Jews that we're talking about were white too. But when we move beyond that and we're now getting into African Americans and African American women, and we're in 2022, and this is the first time a Black woman who has locks, who is a dark-skinned sister, is also having to be grilled about her appearance, her looks, her thoughts, her appearance. We see that this was something going on there. There was some there. And then let's put in context that it was a bunch of Black men and women who were producing, directing, and running this particular award show. But let's also put it into context that this wasn't the first time that Chris Rock had on this same stage come for Miss Jada Pinkett Smith. He had attacked her before about being at the Oscars. And let's also put into context and put it into a type of understanding that not only is Will dealing with because I personally don't think that Will gives a crap about anything that anybody's been saying because he put it out there. It's his, it's true. Him and his wife are comfortable. I think Will is so smooth. He understands that to be in the place that he is, it invites people to critique and to criticize. So I don't think Will has a problem. I legitimately think that Will had to wrestle with and deal with his own mama, daddy issues in reference to what he used to see and what he had to deal with and what he had to allow as a child because he could not fight back against his father, his own instances and his own situations, and then watching now the woman he currently loves and he currently is with being hurt. And this time I heard it, I felt it. I felt like Will said, I'll be damned. Excuse me for cussing, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let another woman I love get hurt by somebody else, by another Black man. So when we put all that in context, what we're seeing is we're seeing that this man is standing up to fight not only for his wife, but this wife is now a token, a symbol, a representation of every woman he could not defend. Every woman he could not fight for. And so because I love you so much, I'm going to stand up. And if I embarrass myself, this fool opened his mouth and invited the quarrel and asked for a beating. See, I remember growing up, I've never been much of a fighter. But I remember 4th grade, Westminster Elementary. Never much of a fighter, but folk didn't really bother me because they knew, although I wasn't much of a fighter, I could fight. There's a whole conversation in that. And so people did not bother me after I got to, but it was one day, Johnny Brown, only time I ever lost a fight was 4th grade, Johnny Brown. And I tell you what happened. Johnny Brown was joning me and I could not get him. But I started talking about his mama and his grandmama, and everybody started laughing because that was one thing I was good at, your mama and your grandmama. And so when I got through, Johnny Brown looked at me and said, don't nobody talk about my grandma. And Johnny Brown picked me up and threw me on the ground and began to beat me down because I had attacked something that was sensitive to him. We later found out why Johnny Brown, because there were some issues that Johnny Brown had seen with his mama and his grandmama that he could not defend because of his daddy, his granddaddy, his uncles, and other men. But when it was to me, because he could, because Johnny Brown was 6 feet tall in the 4th grade, but because he could deal with this little 5'4", 5'5" little boy, he dealt with it. I believe Will had a Johnny Brown moment. I couldn't deal with this other stuff, but I can deal with this right here. I hope that makes sense. Will
because I want to say I don't see this as, and I don't see it as justifying. I said exactly what you said, Zay. Like I believe that there was a moment that popped up, because I do not think that Will was in the room. Just from my clinical eyes and doing this for years, I don't believe the man was in the room. I think his body was in the room. I think the giggles were in the room, but I think the room itself was too heavy for him, because all of these people in here, y'all all talked about me. Y'all, it's a lot of weight in this room. My whole family's business is out here. We put it out there, but it's weight. I don't think it was even a matter of him caring about what people think. It's just, how do I manage myself in the room? And it became too heavy. So I do not condone anything that happened. This is Margaret speaking. I don't condone it. I don't think that I don't think that it had to be a hit. What I'm saying is, I don't know what space Will was in that it led to the hit. This Johnny Brown moment, this your wife joke, your mama joke, your however it want to be. How has this landed in the mind space of this Black man? I want us to really think about that, because I know it don't justify that. This is 2022. This shouldn't have went there. No, let's see what happens when our bodies escalate beyond regular thought. Our thought is dysregulated, and I am coming from a clinical standpoint tonight. Our thought is dysregulated. Your thalamus, the Black people, you really need to know about the middle of your brain, because when that thing ain't hitting right, when it ain't stimulated on an even pattern, then your dorsal vagal, polyvagal is off. And when you escalate to where you can't control it, you
we
will
become animalistic
down and leave, or your body's just gonna start responding for you based on past memory, because all you're doing is a amygdala response. So I'm either gonna fight, I'm gonna fly, I'm gonna freeze, I'm gonna try to fix it.
and I
We know we'll
believe
fight. And I think
and
that's what
I
happened.
believe and I was just about to say, I believe that's what happened. He went back to his base. And when I say base, I mean his bare necessities. He went back to his base needs, his base principles, his base understanding that this is a moment for me to protect. And let's take it even further. Black women do it all the time for Black men. Mess with a Black woman's brother, mess with a Black woman's son, and watch what happens. She doesn't care anything about, she becomes a mother bear, a mother hen, mess with her children, and she becomes something else. And she begins to, it doesn't matter what it takes, she's going to do what she needs to do to protect that which she thinks is hers and needs protecting. Will did the same thing. So no, we didn't really deal with the text as much.
I do, and I think Will did the same thing in this, because I'm seeing the comments. Yes, Lee Smith, there was it's unresolved trauma, and it doesn't even have to go all the way back to childhood. If I got 2 years of getting slammed on me, then whatever my reptilian brain is gonna tell me to do, and I'm not saying this being nasty. I go pick up some books and read them. Whatever that little piece of my brain called the amygdala is gonna do, that reptilian part is just, I'm gonna respond. Then that's what Will's does. This ain't the first time Will done slapped somebody. Will threatened to slap people. I mean, he coming through for a reporter on the red carpet when somebody tried to kiss him in the mouth. I mean, because clearly this is his response. Now, what we did see and what people are not noting is how when he released that energy, he smiled. And he went back into that frontal lobe and said, "Oh God, I'm at the Oscars." Watch how he walked out. He straightened himself. I don't want to believe in my mind that building was hot, but he was glossy after that because his body heated up. So, and I'm saying all this to say to Black community, we are in a shift that's coming. And Will's response in the shift is something we need to pay attention to for all of us as we are beginning to shift, because fools in this case, I don't want anybody to think I'm not calling Chris Rock a fool, but you're a fool when you don't know the whole context. Context matters. When you don't know the whole story, thank you, James Hayford. When you don't know the whole story, quit telling the story, because you're about to tell it wrong, period, because you don't know the whole story. Quit causing that. And that's what I mean. It is proverbial. I'm going to find it and put it up here so y'all won't think I'm lying. That's an abomination to bring discord among your brethren. If you don't know it, because we don't know how people are responding as we begin to even out and level out and come off of that high in our trauma, because we've had to relive it. And we in these bodies have not lived it personally until now. Yes, we carry the trauma of our ancestors. I'm a
Thank
real
you.
big believer of intergenerational trauma. And I'm a
Yes,
really big
yes,
believer of historical trauma where our families didn't know how to manage what we did.
yes.
Now we are experiencing it ourselves. We, as mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters, are experiencing this pain personally, and it is joining in with the pain of our ancestors, and we don't know how we're going to respond. So we're talking about Will like he knew not to do better, but pay attention if y'all want to go watch the clip. It was so fast. I don't think Will knew what to do because I got into a fight and my mom got scared. That should let you know with that one line that Will had the potential to do something. Because your mama wouldn't be scared if she knew you was gonna lose for real. Your mom was scared you was gonna die. Somebody gonna pull out a fist, they're gonna pull out a gun. So my mom got
Or
scared. She moved me. She put me
or
in a
you were gonna kill
place
somebody.
activated.
Or you were gonna kill somebody.
So she put me in a place where I wouldn't be activated. How many of you guys had parents, or how many of y'all are parents right now that your mom and daddy moved you away from the food so you wouldn't have to experience the quarrel because nobody knew how you was gonna be activated?
Margaret, you've heard my story, and I'm not gonna go through it, but you heard the story about me and how my mama got scared because when I did fight, I blacked out, and I think that's why I understand Will, is because when I do for real fight, you've seen me, you've been in places with me where I've got to that point and I completely what black out. I don't know what's going on, and all you like, Zay, come back, come back, come back. I mean, and so I understand Will because when you are triggered, there is a response to I'm either gonna run, flight, or I'm gonna fight. And in that moment, running was not an option. Fighting was for him the only option. And so for all of us who think we're so deep, and some of the people who I watched, who I watched for the last few days commenting on this and assaulting Will with their words about why he was wrong and calling him dumb and stupid and he's messed up. Some of them I know personally, and I'm like, I've watched you in situations be the Chris Rock. So now I understand why you are identifying and supporting what Chris Rock did, because I've watched some of these people who I love dearly antagonize other people until that person started crying or that person was ready to pop, and then dared that person to do something to them. I've watched you become the wheel where somebody popped off in your space and then you were at the wheel and you were ready to fight. So I think we got to look at it from both ends, but I do want us to at least do
And I know we
something
ended
with
up
that
on
text.
Will, but I do, and I don't want to just say on Will. Now I want to go back to Jada, because we missed what happened if you didn't go back and watch the clip. I'm a therapist. Lomax. What did Lomax tell me? I ain't a preacher, but I'm a preacher social worker. So I'm going to look at it. Jada's whole demeanor changed. This wasn't the first time she got joned at the Oscars, by the way. This wasn't the first time Jada got joned in public. I mean, she got joned and talked about it public, period. But this wasn't funny this time. So I don't know what pain she was carrying either. I don't know what the pain was in that area, because if we watch Lupita's face, she had pain too. She like, oh my, we don't know what the pain was sitting. And so for Jada, her reptilian amygdala response was Jada's face froze. It went too ugly and it froze. Like, is this happening tonight? So what happens when you sit in so much pain that you don't know what to do? Because we got that response that was in the room too. That response was in the room. And so how are we responding to that? Because we keep saying that Will was wrong. Again, I'm not condoning anything that happened, but how do we take care of the pain that showed up in the room that we could only see the speckles of? Like, when do we nurture in our community the pain that freezes? Not the pain
that is why I started off thanking Denzel and Madea/Tyler, because they were able to take and deal with that so that Will could come down. Because even after he walked away, he was not down. He was still fighting, but he was not where he was at the top, where he slapped him. Because after he walks away, he screams back at Chris some expletives about keeping his wife's because his wife is still hurting when he gets back to that seat. And then she reaches over to him and she feels some level of comfort. And after the brothers have talked to him, and if you watch it, he starts to cry. And some people even talked about that. Why is he crying now? He's crying because he now realizes what has happened. And all of those emotions and all of that anger is flooding him. And so how do we deal with this? So when we talk about the bald head scallywag and we talk about God dealing with this and God bringing this was dealing with, let's be real, this text was not applicable to Will and Jada because one, Will and Jada do not submit to this type of ethic. This is a Christian / Hebraic Jewish ethic that is for a particular group of people. Number one, Will and Jada do not say that they're Christian. And they definitely don't say they're Jewish. Number two, if we are Christians who believe in the redeemed blood of a crucified and risen Savior by the name of Jesus the Christ, then we no longer operate under this Old Testament curses because he has destroyed and broken the curses. We are now under a different level of grace. We are now operating under what the old sanctified church would say, the dispensation of grace. So again, it doesn't apply to us because grace has covered us. I don't know if I'm making sense. So we took this text because we wanted to address something that and then secondly, it goes back to what I said. She has not caused him any shame because they have agreed upon what they have agreed upon. Mm-hmm. That is their relationship. We talk about people who have this type of relationship, but then we glorify David and Solomon who had multiple wives.
Now, Zay, you said we were staying on here for 35 minutes. That's what you told me. Now we at 56. You're gonna open up a whole nother. But we do glorify it. But we
glorify it. But we have David and Solomon who we say with Solomon. I don't know how we get Solomon as the wisest man in the world, but he got all these wives, all these concubines, and yet he only ends up having 2 children. Some of the milk ain't clean, but that is what we go. So Will and Jada saying that we're going to do what we do. And I'm not condoning, again, I'm like Margaret, I'm not condoning a particular sexual ethic. I'm not condoning a particular sexual lifestyle. That is not my point. But my point is we come against what we don't understand and what we don't like, what is uncomfortable for us. And then we try to justify it by finding a text that is not applicable. This is what white folk did to us in slavery.
Come on, Zay.
Slaves, obey thy master, for it is right in the Lord. This is what our abusive parents did to us when they said, children, obey your parents so that your life may be extended or may be long. But they didn't keep reading where it says, but parents, do not push thy children to wrath. But let's look at this text even more, because that's what I was trying to get to. And then I'm going to shut up and I'm going to be done. Is that this text that we've read, not the Proverbs text, but the other text we read that we started off with, where we got our title from, when we talk about a sash, that sash has so many meanings from a Hebraic and spiritual sense. That sash represents a kingly, a high level of thought. That sash represents a priestly level of thought. So kings and priests both wore sashes, and so that's when we start talking about the garments. If you look through it, this is dealing with a priestly situation. This is the third reason why this doesn't apply to Will and to Jada, is because this is dealing with the priest when you start looking at the garments. And so when we start talking about a perfume, they had to wash their bodies in a perfume. They had to get themselves ready as they entered into the temple. And so when we start talking about the sash meant that I was with God, but the rope meant that I may not have walked right. And so I had the rope tied around me so that if the bells, the pomegranates at the end of my rope stopped jingling, they could pull me out. And many of us are in some situations that we need to be pulled out. And so we don't have a sash, we got a rope. So I'm no longer walking in this priestly, this richly, this authoritative place that I'm supposed to be in. So this is talking to those of us who are supposed to be walking as priests and kings, but we dilly and dally in stuff that's low. We have given up our high place to walk in and deal with and get to this base level so that we can have some talk about. Because some of y'all really should be talking about this. Because folk in glass houses ought not throw stones. Because some of you got some Will and Jada stuff that's going on that ain't nobody found out about. So you really should have been covering Will and praying for Jada and praying for Will, even though they don't identify like us, because I ain't gonna go there. But you should have. So this is what we're talking about. And if you keep reading, you'll see more of the garments that are dealing with the priestly and the kingly position.
No, Zay, I'm just gonna, sometimes you can put the comment up. Thank you, James. Zay said it. He said it from that preacher sound, but James said it from his own sound. Some of us need to, because they said, you got on a sash or a rope. Like James said it perfectly. Like it's really recognizing your own triggers and being accountable for your own choices. Because some of us, what you got on, like, and so I got stuck right there, Zay, because of that. And I knew you was gonna come back to it. We do this every week, y'all. Like we might start out like left field from each other. But this right here, how are you operating and how are you managing? And I don't want y'all to think that the person who was the writer of this or who's attributed to Isaiah, that he had all of a sudden had greatness. I mean, he literally had a command from the Lord, according to the text, to go into a place that wasn't going to listen to him. So some of this fell on deaf ears anyway. But when you have this perfume, when you're preparing your body to be into a certain place and now it's a stench, when you're wearing a sash that literally at the top of this, I said that sash says I'm connected. I am connected. And now I got on a rope that's saying it's going to save me or it's going to take me out because it could slip. What are we doing in our community? Do we have this perfume on? Or are we walking around in stench because we bringing discord to it? We're not following through. If you go back and read the entire level of poetry here from 1 to 3 in these chapters, the first 3 chapters, is talking about how they moved away from the sovereignty, being under the sovereignty of God. So I'm bringing that back home really clear. How have we moved out of the safety of community to be trying to judge people? Which
for us, is the community for us was the love, the hand, the arm, the feel of God. God gave us as Black people community, African ascended people, African ascended people. We knew that community was how God worked with us. God used community to bring us together. One of my favorite people, you know who he is, Margaret. We went to ITC. He told us one day in chapel, he said, how do you wash your face? And everybody started screaming out washcloths and towels. And he said, that's good. But everybody who knows that if you're really going to wash your face, you need a mirror. Well, the room is starting to think, and the room is starting to respond. He said, but who is the mirror? And folks start screaming, God, and other things. He said, you're not wrong, but the community that you live in and that you serve and that you are a part of is the mirror. The community shows you the reflection of who you are and what you're trying to become so that you can wash your face. And what I'm offering to us today is that many of us have taken off sashes and put on ropes because we have disconnected ourselves from the community that lets us be able to see how bad we really are. Sometimes you can't smell yourself. Sometimes you got to have the community to tell you, you put on too much cologne, because too much perfume can be just as bad as a little must. Too much cologne can be just as stank as something that is stench. And so when we talk about a stench means that something is unclean. A stench means that something is decaying and that something is dying. So your community helps you to realize it's something that you have on or that you don't have on that you're lacking. The community lets you know that you need to go put on a little deal. The community lets you know because the community is your mirror. It shows you where you need to be and where you're lacking. And so I think for many of us, what we saw was at that moment, Will disconnected, as you said, in some ways, possibly, because Will was remembering his old community. But then, here comes Tyler. Here comes Brother Denzel, who is now the elder. And here comes Tyler, who may not have been working in the industry as long as Will, but has entered into a level of eldership because he went and sat at the feet of the other elders. I feel it. And so these two elders come to this brother and they speak to him, not in elders as an age, but elders in experience and elders in spirit. And they speak to this brother. And when the elders speak to him, the community begins to speak to him. When they begin to speak to his spirit, he cries, he breaks, and then he apologizes. And so many of us are missing the fact that he has already repented, and we're still trying to hold something over his head that is already dead. Because he repented and he apologized because the community brought him back into right standing. And that's the problem with the church. We're still remembering folks' old stuff, and we have not brought them back into right standing. But he found a community that can restore him. The Bible says that when you have fallen into sin, call upon the elders, and the elders will bring you, and they will restore you. Look, am I right, Margaret? Am I in the book?
I went right to the text. James 5, for those who want to know. Go on, read it. James 5. Yes.
And so the elders restored him that night. Why are we still talking about this and beating this man up when the elders said he is restored? I'm so glad that it was some elders when I've had some Will-like moments that have restored me, even when you won't accept my rest. Will is all right with me. Y'all can say what y'all want to about him. He popped off. He did what I would have done. I ain't gonna lie to you. You mess with Marla or Marquita or Layla Marie, make them feel like he made OJ to feel, and I will pop off. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna lie to you. It would have been like that. But thank God for the elders. And I'm done because I know we got to go, and I got to get up. We got to go. God bless you, bone.
So we about to go, y'all. I thank you for joining in tonight. There is so much, and I'll end this tonight. I know they got to go, and I was putting it up, but James 5:14 through 16 actually, and I want us to see what he said, because this is how we're gonna go out tonight. If there any sick among you, so we take that and we try to play with that, and but if there's any sick among you, but it's so many of us that's sick right now among us. We're sick. Like we're sick. We're sick and tired. Can I be sick and tired? We're over it. Some of us aren't in a good headspace. So tonight wasn't, because that ain't what live moments on the men do. We don't pass judgment on anybody, because that ain't our job. We ain't got nothing to do with that, right? We didn't say don't do that. What we want to do is bring it to the community, because that's what we do. Because we finna lift this moment up, because the community is sick. And we need to call on the elders. Some of our elders are post-mortem. Like I've been sitting with Howard Thurman in the last 2 days. And I've been sitting with Howard Thurman's meditations. And Howard Thurman invited us to think about the traffic in our mind, because we're sick. And how fast that traffic goes. And what is the purpose of all of the thought and the traffic in our mind? And how is it going to serve purpose? And how's it going to get us back to this space of sovereignty, where we exchange rope for sash, and we put on the right amount of perfume so we don't have a stench? And then, and the prayer of faith shall save the sick. It didn't even, what we saw was Tyler touched. Denzel stood and spoke, but they encased that man with love. And what happened, it wasn't just in the corner. Let me tell you how somebody had to pan over and see that. It flooded the room. The white, the black, the Hispanic, everybody got hit with those three men. There was a touch. There was a spoken word. And then the prayer that went forth. Prayer didn't have to be, I'm on my knees, oh God, Father, thank you. No, the prayer that went forth was, brother, we with you. We're holding you. And the hold went across the entire room. And it hit Chris too. Why did it hit Chris? Yeah, I don't really need to say that no more. We saw his face. And the prayer of the faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven. And I understand that the brother and the sister, this is not what they confess to be, but principles are principles to me. I've watched somebody for the last 4 years before, he lived in principle, right? We talk about him, but the man lived in principle. Principles will get you where you need to go. And so if this principle is true, and we watched it happen, if anybody paid attention to the entire thing, we watched it happen. Here comes what we tell people what they need to do and what we've been waiting on, but he's done it. They said it. Confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that ye may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of righteous men and women, they availeth much. It's stuff that had to happen before 16. We love to quote 16, but we James 5 and 16 to be happy. But if they're sick, call those who understand the sickness. That's what elders do. The elders just don't have a title. They understand how you got here because they've been there too. And so, brother, I'm going to touch you. I'm going to speak to you. I'm going to encase you. I'm going to pour into your heart is what I'm going to do. If I pour into your heart, then the anointing oil of God will come and it's going to flood this place. Because if Isaiah said the train of his robe, the oil is going to take over. And if that's the case, then you pray. And the prayer of the faith will save the sick. And then this confession comes. There is healing that is layered in what happened. Community, see what we saw. And then how can we make that a community space to heal? Black men, Black women, Black children are hurting all over. And we don't know if the hit, I ain't here to judge the hit. Was there another way? Yeah, for me it was, but I don't know if it was for him. Because that's all he had in that womb. In that moment. But what we saw was other wound spaces. Because did Jada have to make that stank face? Might have been another way for me, but in the moment, that was her pain. Did Chris Rock have to look surprised after the hit? It could have been another way. He could have fought him back. But in the moment, all he had to do was freeze. We watched the amygdala responses through the room. And so tonight, it is more than just a confession. But if you are feeling sick, if you are not there, go to those who understand your pain. Let them pray with you, be with you. Let the oil roll on you, be in you. And then say what you need. The confession of the fault isn't the sin. The confession is, yo, I'm hurting. And this is my response and my pain. So that we can pray for you and that we may be healed. Because that's when the prayer is effective. Y'all be blessed tonight. Y'all sit with it tonight. This is Lift Moments on the Men. We thank you for supporting us. And y'all go do what y'all need. God bless.